Hello and welcome to another episode of Property-Pxrn Stars, the premium property podcast. And today I'm joined by Sam Ashdown of Ashdown Jones, a very interesting company based up in the Lake District. And we'll talk about why they're interesting in a minute. But first of all, Sam, thank you so much for joining me. How are you? You all right?
My pleasure. I'm well. It is. It's a fairly sunny day in the lakes, which I don't often get a chance to say. But I'm waiting for a big storm. I don't know about you, but it's a bit humid here at the moment. How are you?
Don't wish it away. Don't wish it away. Come on.
It's
like 1 week of summer.
Autumn and winter. I feel like we sell houses better in autumn and winter. Like in the summer when it's humid and muggy and everybody's outside and the roads are all clogged with tourists. Nobody wants to buy houses. I
was going to say, like just diving into that for a second, being in a very beautiful part of the world and obviously tourist hotspot, do you get in the summer a lot of tire kickers, people that come around waste time, and you've got to try and filter those out somehow?
I think it's the opposite. I think that the buyers stay away because they've got better things to do in the summer. If they don't need to buy, they don't want to sit in the traffic with all the other tourists. You know, it can take you 45 minutes to go 4 miles, which might not be a big deal for people in cities, but for us in the Lake District, when you go 4 miles, it takes you 4 minutes.
Yeah,
usually, unless some sheep on the road.
So to start off because I did a bit of background research into the company and did my stats and all that sort of stuff. The thing I've got to ask you about either this is a typo on your website or I think you might be completely mad. You're currently in your 47th home. Does that mean you've moved home 47 times?
47 times.
You need to be studied. True. What are you? You're a glutton for punishment. Why? How?
You write books on me. I should be part of a Netflix series. Funnily enough, I've actually been in the same house for 5.5 years, which I never have in my life.
So you've crammed the other 46 in a pretty short space of time.
I feel like I have. Yeah.
What's that about?
And in the next few years, I'll probably end up moving in with a partner. So that's 48. He doesn't know this yet, and hopefully
breaking news on the podcast. Relationship advice, new announcements, birthdays, bar mitzvahs, we do it all. So, sorry, I'd go out. Why have you moved around this isn't all in the Lake District, is it? There can't be that many houses.
No, I've lived all over the country. In fact, I've even lived in France. But my parents started it off when we were kids. My parents bought and sold for a living, basically. So bought, renovated, sold, and we just kept moving and moving and moving. And then just a few kind of circumstances. I've rented for the last 12, 15 years. I own houses, but I've rented. So I rent my own house now, which I know some people think is a bit potty. But I rent to buy. That's why I do it. So I don't keep all my money in my property, and I can rent a nicer house and I can put some of it against tax, etc. So when you rent a house, you've not got stability. So you have to move when the landlord wants to sell or wants to do something else with the house. So about half of the last 10 moves have been my choice and the other half haven't been my choice. The other thing with renting is you don't have to think about renovating your own house and adding space on. You can just go and rent a bigger house. So in some ways, it's a lot more freeing. So that's probably part of the reasons why. But I've bought and sold a lot of houses and renovated. So I would say, as well as my 47 moves, I've probably had about another 20 homes, 20 properties that are nothing to do with my own personal where I live.
So as far as empathizing with buyers and sellers going, there are probably few better people to do that than you, having done that. Okay, fair enough.
I've written a book on, which is not published actually yet. I need to get it published, just like a mini book on moving house, because I decided that I don't know anybody that's moved house more times than me. So I must be the expert on moving house. So I've written a book on it.
I was going to say, they don't know what the Guinness Book of Records are measuring this. So moving away from what you do in your spare time and moving houses. So you set up Ashdown Jones with yourself and Phil, who's your son-in-law, right?
Yeah.
So firstly, that's a pretty unusual dynamic and setup and business partnership, and probably about as high risk. Like, I've worked with my family since forever, but that doing it with sort of a partner in law is kind of somehow that ups the ante even further, I think, because there's like a relationship on the line that I don't know. I can't explain that, but I think it's even harder. So fair play. And how did that come about?
Okay. Well, also, it's not just my relationship with him, is it? It's his relationship with my daughter.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you guys fell out big time, then that's going to put a strain on their marriage or whatever, right?
Well, it's probably more likely that they fall out, and then what would I do?
Oh, right. Yeah, okay.
I'm going to be in business then with my ex-son-in-law, which would be even worse. And also, he wasn't my in-law when we first started working together. So, yeah, the whole thing was a massive risk. I am a bit of a risk taker. In fact, I'm a lot of a risk taker. So I believe in taking massive risks and failing often. You only have to look at my romantic relationships to see that. So the story is that Phil, when he was 23, I think, and Molly was like, I don't know, 19, and they were talking about staying together and having, making a family together. They were talking about getting married. So it was all at the beginning of their relationship, but it was clearly a committed relationship. And he asked me for some business advice. He said, I want to start up a business. And at the time I was working with estate agents all over the country and helping them grow their businesses. That was my business. I had a coaching practice, I suppose you could call it, or an agency. And he said, what can I do? I'm working for an energy company. I'm putting meters in houses. I want to do something with my life. So for about a year, we worked on lots of different business ideas for him, and none of them stuck, or he didn't like them, or they didn't work. I don't know, lots of different reasons. And in the end, he said to me, why don't we open an estate agency? And my first thought was no. I'd always said one day, but I didn't want that to be the one day. I wasn't ready. And he pushed it a little bit. And I don't know, just in a moment of weakness, I went, go on then. So he had no money. He was living with his parents, and he had obviously no experience of any kind, but he was clever. He is clever. He's a clever guy, and he's sharp. He learns fast. And I could see that him and Molly were in a committed relationship. I thought, I'm just going to give it a go. And what I probably thought would happen was that mine and his relationship wouldn't succeed, but that I would then have an agency that I could run with somebody else, or that I could take on staff. Because I'd always said, as I say, one day. So we started with absolutely nothing, April the 4th, 2017. And we had very little money. We had the money that I had in my business. I was having to carry on servicing my clients, otherwise the money would have dried up. We also got married that year, and I had to commit, just short of 20 grand to that. So it was a tough year financially. And we kind of, what we set our stall on doing, and this is what I would say to anybody who's just starting up now, is we set our stall on selling what looked like unsellable houses without touching the asking price. So we'd say, Mr. Lindley, your house is £1 million. You've been on the market for 4 years. Your marketing's a bit rubbish, but we think the price is about right. So we're going to keep your price. Come with Ashdown Jones. We're going to change all your marketing, and we're going to sell. And that's what we did. And so the first 20, 30, 40 houses, almost all of them were houses that had previously been on the market and not sold with previous agents. One had been on the market for 7 years.
So when you... And sorry, I cut you off then. And
I was going to say, we still didn't change the asking price, the most recent asking price. And we did get the asking price.
Yeah. And so, sorry, I cut you off there. But the question I was going to ask you was that kind of line, I suppose, about selling a home without touching the asking price. Was that something you'd almost, quote unquote, advertise? Or was that something you talk about in the living room? It's like, we're Ashdown Jones, we'll sell you. If you've been struggling to sell, we'll sell your home without touching the asking price.
To a point, yeah. I think that you've always got to recognize that sometimes changing the asking price is best for the seller.
Yeah.
But what we didn't do is go in and go, we want to change your asking price and we want the instruction at the same time. I don't think that's fair. Because if you've got, the 3 Ps, price, promotion, presentation, why would you just go to price? You've got promotion and presentation to go to. So let's exhaust those 2 first and have like a 2-step process where we do that first. We, we review the activity and the interest, and 6 months, 12 months time, if necessary, we can go back and look at the price. But you don't do that at the outset. Why would you? And I think it's quite a hard sell as well to go to somebody, maybe they've only been on the market for a few months, and go, swap to us and reduce your asking price. Well, why wouldn't they just give the discount, in their asking price to the current agent? I would.
Yeah, I get that. And if this is A, something you don't want to answer, or B, just too long to talk about, then just say. But when we talk about changing the promotion and presentation then of the other 2 Ps, what kind of things would that constitute? What would that marketing look like? And is it because Is it because the general standard of marketing was pretty poor? Was it the basics, or are you doing things that are really, really unique and really innovative? And I'm not saying silver bullet, but something which is really pushing the envelope of what agency marketing looks like to get these sold then?
I would love to say it's the latter.
Yeah.
And I would love to say that I'm
Sam's
an
secret
expert
formula.
marketer, David. Yeah, I pulled out my silver bullet and none of that. It's just the basics. I mean, God, I've been in this industry a long time, and I started in 2004 with my first property-related business, Home Truths. And for the first probably 10 years, I would say that 4 out of 5, if not 9 out of 10 agents were not using professional photography. It's that basic. And when you're selling £1 million, £2 million, £3 million home, I found that the attitude to marketing was appalling. I mean, you're a property marketer, right? You know that you've got to have amazing property marketing, but that just means doing the basics right. So having beautiful photography, poetic descriptions, magazine style brochures, picture board, all the things that we know sell houses and make the vendor feel good about the process. Whereas when the vendor feels a little bit lackluster about their photography and, the copy's been written by some junior in the office, it's just talking about PowerPoints and how many windows each room has, then it's just lazy marketing.
Yeah.
I mean, way back, my mum worked for William H. Brown, which is that's your part of the country, isn't it?
Yeah.
We were in Lincolnshire at the time.
Yeah.
And she used to have to, type up particulars, as they called them, with carbon copies, and way before your time, that is, and stick photographs on the front, and it was hard work to put property particulars together. And they were crap, but it was a lot harder work. They put a lot more effort into that than we do sometimes today. Yeah. So I think that just doing the basics right was the first sort of point. And also, when you walk into somebody's living room and the room is not ready for photography, it's your responsibility as the agent to change that and make it look amazing on photography, which might mean taking props. It might mean moving furniture, and just really taking pride in the finished product. You and I have seen photographs of people's houses where they've not moved a litter bin, or they've not made a bed, or they've got a child in the photograph. It's just, it is appalling what vendors have to cope with, I think. Not so much now. I think things have changed. I've banged the drum now for 21 years on this, and I do think that things have definitely changed. But that's all we did. 8 years ago, in the Lake District, our competitors were not competitors. They were very complacent. And so we're able just to change things quite quickly.
Yeah. I really agree with what you're saying, and I've heard it a lot, that it is just doing the basics very well. But going back to the 3 P's as you describe it there, I'm right in saying price, presentation, and promotion, right? Those are the 3 P's that you're referring to.
I didn't invent that, by the way.
No, I know. I'm going to get it wrong, and I'll sound like an idiot. So, what this is just in by design, my company, but what a lot of the attitude there is from people that are doing really well, especially, is like to almost exhaust the other 2 P's before you come back to price. So leaving the vendor with the feeling that the agent really has done everything they can and leaving no stone unturned in terms of its promotion and its presentation, and only then going back to the price. And that's kind of fair as well, you'd say, because they're paying good fees and they're paying upfront fees, and so no, I'm with you. I was hoping for a silver bullet, so we'll come back to that.
Yeah, okay. I think also the vendor has to feel like you genuinely care about the product, which is their house. So we had a house back in 2019, I think it was, that had been on the market for a long time, and they'd been on the market with, I can't remember if it was Savills or Knight Frank, and maybe Fine and Country. No offense to Fine and Country, sorry. And that they had beautiful brochures, great photography. That bit had all been good, but both these 2 agents had been across other parts of the Northwest and didn't even want to do viewings. They were too far away. It's too remote. Yeah. We don't really get covered properly here by Savills and Knight Frank. And they'd been messed about by this guy that had been trying to buy for years and just messing about. And it felt to the vendor, that Diana, she was called, that they didn't care. These agents didn't care about her home, and they didn't care the fact that it felt like they switched allegiance to the buyer, and they were trying to get this buyer to get through the deal and not really thinking about the marketing in the meantime. So we came along and said, look, we think that you should just forget this buyer, forget the other 2 agents. Let's just start afresh as if it was today. And then let's do something a bit different. So let's make all the photography look different, all different angles, twilight photography, drone, things that they hadn't had before, unbelievably. But we'll also do a lifestyle movie. So you can still see it now on YouTube. It's called Balla Ray, Balla, Ray, Wray. And she was so enchanted by this idea. We're going to do a lifestyle movie on her house, where we're going to do a kind of like a day in the life of this beautiful home, that she got completely excited and bought in. And she starred in the video as well. So we've got a video online of her as the owner of the home, showing her, quote unquote, grandchildren that weren't really, around the house and having fun with it, like playing hide and seek and going out on a boat and really showcasing this lovely home. And to me, that was what estate agency should be about. It should be about thinking about what the vendor wants and the vendor needs, obviously trying to sell her house in the best possible way, but allowing her to enjoy the process and to fall back in love with her house, which had become a bit of a millstone around her neck. It was a difficult house to sell, 3.5 million, 67-year lease on the property, 3 different leases on 3 different parts of the property. The National Trust had the, with the landowner. And it was tough. It was a tough sell, but we did get somebody to buy it. And we've now remained friends with the owner because she enjoyed the process so much. So take her from where she was, which was going through hell with these corporate agents, to going, through something actually quite enjoyable with us and getting a sale at the end of it, was a really lovely process to see her participate in.
Yeah. That makes sense. It's quite a ballsy attitude, isn't it? Say that we'll sell your home, we're not going to change the price for something that hasn't worked. A property presentation that hasn't worked before. Also, without calling out individual companies, it's I don't know whether you find this as well, but I find whenever I speak to people that aren't used to the premium market, which is, just for people that don't know, where it's fair to say you've specialized in and focus on, right? The premium end of the market. Yeah.
Same as you. Yeah.
Is I don't know whether you agree with me or not, but there's this misconception that it is those household names which are the toughest nuts to crack when it comes to your competitors. And I say it's actually, generally speaking, not the case. The harder to unstick is a very, very well established independent agent that's got a track record of excelling in that market. Those national premium agents, again, this is a sweeping generalization, but quite often trade on the coattails of their own brand. And being the second agent in to them isn't the worst thing in the world, because they can actually appreciate what some very high levels of service look like, very high levels of property presentation look like. It's actually quite good. It's actually quite a good thing. Completely I don't know if you've seen the same thing.
No, I completely agree. And I think that they are a natural go-to, right? If you've got like a £5 million house, you probably think it needs to be Savills or Knight Frank or, one of the big boys. But if you've got a £5 million house and you've earned that house, so you haven't been gifted it, inherited it, you've got something about you, right? You've probably had a business. You might have even sold a business. You've had to work really hard. You're probably some kind of entrepreneur and you're savvy. So when some local agent comes along and tells you all these things that they're going to do, it's going to mean everything to that agent. We even said this to this lady, Diana. We said, selling your home is everything to us. It will help us, our brand, our families, our futures. So it means everything to us. I don't believe Knight Frank could sit there and say that with hand on their heart. Can they? They can't do it.
But they are the default position, them and the others as well, because we're anoraks about estate agency brands and stuff, and we're really into it and all the rest of it. But most public don't care. They're subconsciously in the back of their head, they'll know a few brands and they'll put it on the market. Oh, this is an expensive house. I'll put it on with X, Y, Z. And that's the barrier that people need to get through, I suppose. But it's understandable. And they do appreciate it then sometimes when you can provide that level of service. Can I you've thrown me with something you've said there, because I was going to ask you a question about marketing that I thought was very different, and now you've just undone my question. Maybe I'm being stupid, but I was looking on your website and there's some amazing properties on there and they look beautiful, but what I couldn't see on here, and I thought it was an intentional thing, was videos. And I thought, oh, that's unusual, I'm going to ask Sam about that. But then you just said that you did a video, but it was on YouTube. So maybe it's just a very practical question. Do you just put the videos on YouTube and not on your website? What do you do about property videos?
So I don't believe in doing property videos as a general rule.
That is a very controversial opinion.
It is.
Hit me. Tell me why.
There's quite a few reasons for it. But first of all, I'll just say where the exception falls. The exception is when you feel like you really need to pull a video out, as your part of your toolbox because that person has been let down so badly, and you just feel like you need to give something extra. And we worked with an amazing lifestyle videographer that is no longer, unfortunately, a videographer. So it's kind of forced our hand a little bit. We've only ever done 3 videos. I only really like 2 of them.
Really?
Yeah, really. And they were a couple of grand each. They weren't exceptionally expensive, and we paid for them ourselves. And we used them to further our brand. We didn't use them to sell the house.
Right.
So the reason that we don't do videos is because I honestly don't believe it's necessary. And why would we do something that's not necessary, that's going to make me and Phil the bottleneck of our company any more than it already is?
So I guess when you say bottleneck there, you mean your personal brands become, to use a word you said earlier, a millstone for Ashdown Jones, because everyone wants to come to you and Phil.
Yeah, partly, yeah. I mean, not so much anymore, but if we started doing, let's say, presenter-led videos or even lifestyle movies, which require, quite a significant investment of time, effort and money, then we would be the bottlenecks, I believe, for that. We'd never, ever get asked for movies or for videos, ever. We've got it if we need to pull it out of the bag, as I say, but as a general run of the mill, no. I mean, we've sold hundreds of homes in the last 8 years, and we've done 3 videos. It just shows you, doesn't it? It's not necessary. Why would you do it? I mean, we talk to our mastermind members about this all the time, and we've got people like Lisa and John Curran, who've got an amazing brand in Chester. We've worked with them for quite a few years, and so they're called Curran's Unique and Curran's Homes of Chester. So they've got the sort of 2-step brand, and they still do walkthrough videos for every single one of their homes. Now
both brands, Sam.
Both brands, yeah.
Wow, okay, yeah.
Slightly different styles, but both brands. So their team do the Curran Homes one, and most of the time Lisa, who is stunning, and she wears these beautiful big flowy dresses, and she she flows through the homes, and she makes it look like something that should be on Netflix, really. But it's still her, right? So she's got to try and figure out how she's going to fit that into a day. Does she prioritize that over evaluation? When she goes to eval, does she say, I do presenter-led videos myself, and is that a selling point? There's so many different things that are involved in that. And now she's done it. She's made a rod for her own back, I believe. So she's trying to now extract herself from it.
Yeah. A rod for her own back in the sense that people expect her to be the one presenting
and want her and demand her.
Yeah, okay.
Because if you've got a £5 million house in Chester, why wouldn't you want Lisa Curran swishing through your home in a beautiful dress and talking about it? That's what you want. Whereas if you've never had that, you don't expect it. We've got some homes on the market at the moment that are 7, 8. We've got a couple of quietly marketed homes that are over 10. We've not done videos for any of them.
Wow. So
I suppose on a practical level, I'll just interject and say, I honestly don't believe it sells homes better. I think it sells homes worse. So a lot of our buyers are from, out of our area, and we want them to come and see the home. We want to be able to use our sales skills in that house. We don't want them to make a decision based on a video.
You don't want them to make a decision based on a video. Do you mean that you're giving too much information away in a video, that they might discount it off of their shortlist because of that? Or what do you mean?
Yes. Yeah. And also some homes need to be stood in, don't they? You need to stand in the home and feel it. We can show a view on a video, but it's not the same as showing a view. My partner, it's funny, my partner went for a walk this morning and he got up quite high and he looked down over Windermere, the lake, and there was a cloud inversion, which if you don't know what it means, it's a cloud that sits on the water and you look above it, which is incredible. And I said, did you take a picture? And he said, no, it'll never come out. And that's the point, really. You take a photograph of an amazing view, a 10-mile view over lakes and mountains out of a window, whether that's a photograph or a video, you're never going to feel the same as if you stood in the house. So if we want people to stand in the house and make a decision, we're not going to show them a video.
Yeah. So can I challenge you on this? And I don't have a horse in this race. It doesn't make any difference to me. I don't have any videos to sell. But just the only horse I got in it is an interesting podcast. So and for the sake of that, I'll ask a question. So if you were advising someone today who was looking to start their business in the premium market, they had some experience. Okay, let's picture this person. They've been in the premium market, so they know what they're doing, want to start their own business in the premium market in whichever way, shape or form. and they said, Sam, should I do presenter-led videos for the properties that I'm taking on now or not? What should I do? What would you say?
No, don't do it.
God, that's nuts. I like that because it goes against like so much of the general consensus. I was literally watching a video today from someone saying, get your face on camera and all this sort of stuff. Yeah.
I don't disagree with that, by the way. Get your face on camera, but not when you're selling a house. Sell your agency, not the house.
Oh, okay. So what do you mean by this then?
So, I mean, we have done an Ask AJ slot every Wednesday for the last, 7 years. So we've got hundreds of videos online with me and Phil or with our team talking about FAQs, or the market updates or whatever. So every week we do go on camera, or the team goes on camera for a good 10, 15 minutes. So we are getting our face out there, but we're not going to do that for a property. We're going to sell the properties in a different way than... That's not the purpose. You're mixing up two purposes there, I think. If you want to really promote your brand, then promote your brand, but don't use the properties to promote your brand.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, interesting. All right. Okay.
Be controversial, be a thought leader in the area, or go and... We do 12 Days of Christmas every year where we go and, I go and interview 12 local business owners. We've been doing that for many years as well. So we've got, again, hundreds of videos online of... probably about 100 of me interviewing a local personality, a local business owner. That's much, much stronger than trying to do 12 property videos.
Oh, yeah. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the podcast. And chances are, if you're listening to this podcast, then the premium property market is of some interest to you. But how interesting actually is it? Well, we can tell you that with a free personalized premium market report on the premium property market in your area. It shows you, firstly, the value of the premium market around you, and it also shows an in-depth competitor analysis as to what your competition are doing, the good, the bad, and in some detail as well, so you can perhaps make a strategy of how you would take some of that market for yourself if you wanted to. All you need to do is go to bydesignhomes.com/report. That's bydesignhomes.com/report, and we'll send it to you within a day or two. That's it. Back to the episode. So taking a different approach to the same theme then, because I do agree with what you said about the bottleneck aspect of you and Phil especially, and like you said from the lady from Currens, who people want so much. How do you achieve that removal of the bottleneck because it's still your two names above the door, right? It's Sam Ashdown or Phil Jones of Ashdown Jones. Do people want an Ashdown or a Jones at their homes? Can you separate yourself from the business in that aspect?
Yes, it took us a long time to do that, though, it's fair to say. And I know we talked about before we came on camera about what I might do differently. And I don't know if we would have done it differently. It seemed to take us a really long time to get somebody in to do the valuations. I think we were so protective of our conversion rate.
Yeah.
That was hard to do.
Yeah,
I first offloaded it to Phil from me. So firstly, it was me and Phil with me leading. Then it became me and Phil with this kind of co-presenting, if you like. Mm-hmm. And then it became Phil on his own while I went to manage Mastermind, because we run a Mastermind membership, for those of you who don't know, called the AJ Mastermind. And that's where we teach agents our methodology in Ashdown Jones, which is a system. And then I actually found this guy that I was chatting to about something else, who was working for a local holiday let company. And we've got rightly or wrongly, we've got a bit of a policy not to employ anybody from inside the industry, sorry. So not to employ from anybody from the inside the industry, but to start off with a blank slate. And this guy was in a holiday let company where he was selling holiday home owners, on the idea of using his particular agency. So it's a very close, transferable set of skills to what we wanted him to do, but it wasn't a state agency. So we could say 1.5% to him plus that, and then he would just accept it. He wouldn't just go, well, in my previous agency, I charged 1%. So it was quite a cathartic, but still, I suppose, risky and worrying thing to do, to teach him how to do what we'd been doing, knowing, though, that he would never charge below 1.5%.
Yeah. And do you get the problem of people inquiring and asking for you, Phil, or has that gone away now? As in, to do the valuations?
Less than it was. Yeah, less than it was. Phil trialed for a while, not doing any valuations at all, and he got twitchy. So he gets twitchy when the market's tricky, and he jumps back in and does a load of valuations and just generally interferes. And he gets twitchy when he just gets a bit bored and doesn't have enough valuations in his diary in the week. We tend to do about between 6 and 10 valuations a week, and they can be anything from 400,000 to 10 million. So he'll take on Lakefront, Lakeview, 5 million and above.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And leave Tom to do the other ones.
I just crossed my fingers. I wanted to ask you something about employment. Don't let me forget that. But I was going to say, one of the things that I thought was really interesting and very impressive is this won't be totally accurate, Sam, because I just had to guesstimate to an extent.
That's all right.
I did a bit of market research and I did it for £750,000 and above. I'm not sure whether that's exactly where your market starts on, obviously a reasonable one. But what was interesting is that that in the area I looked at is that you're the market leader for properties coming to market. But interestingly as well is that you're growing. So it measures your market share year on year, and it's gone up in the area that I looked at anyway by 12.5%. So yeah, hats off to you for doing that, for being the market leader and then growing as well. You often see people get to that stage of being the market leader, it starts to come down, or there'll be someone else that comes up and starts to undermine that position. So that's really impressive. I'll send you the stats afterwards if you're interested, because they're always.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'd be interested. We do a competitor analysis every month to check where we are against competitors, not because we're being defensive, but because we want to make sure we're not getting complacent. Yeah, and I always want to be. If we're not listing more than anybody else over 500,000, then there's something wrong, because our lead generation is, as you know, reliant on direct mail. So if we're not getting enough valuations and instructions, we want to see which part of that funnel is broken.
Yes.
So we've got KPIs every week based on valuations, instructions, and sales. And if we don't do that, then we can't hit our overall goal for the year. We get about 55%, I would say, directly of our leads directly from direct mail, and about another 45 from more organic means now. Whereas in our first 2-3 years, it was 100% direct mail.
Okay, let me, because I want to ask you about that, but I'm going to lose everything in my head if I don't go back to the previous question I wanted to ask you about. Sorry, I could only do so much. Multitasking is not my forte. So going back to this person that you took on to the valuations, is there anyone in Ashdown Jones that is self-employed in the sense that we talk about self-employment in the industry at the moment, or is it traditional in the sense that it is employed roles?
I'm a bit more traditional, and I much prefer employed. I think there's all kinds of challenges with self-employed, and so one of the challenges, and I'm generalizing because obviously in some regards, and look at EXP, in some regards it can really work, but I don't like the soup to nuts idea. So with one agent doing absolutely everything from lead gen all the way through to completion handover, I don't believe that's the right thing to do in agency. I don't think it speaks to people's skills and on any level. I think it's very dangerous for that person and for the owner as well. I think it's I think it's a dangerous thing to do. It's a shortcut for an agency like us to take on a few self-employed agents and see what sticks. But I don't believe that it's right for the company long term. I don't think it's right for the company culture. I think it breeds sometimes quite a toxic competitive landscape for people, because people are ultimately being paid zero salary and getting a commission. So they're making decisions that you wouldn't necessarily make about your brand. For example, which homes they're going to accept. Take on, they can't be selective. Yeah. So those are the main two reasons. I suppose the third reason is that if somebody is good enough to be a self-employed agent for you, why wouldn't they just run their own company? And there might be good reasons for it. They might not want to, but usually I think it's a hybrid role for them where they're on the brink of going off and doing something for themselves. Like I've heard people say all the time, well, I'm going to be with EXP for a year until I get my foot in the door, and then I'll go off on my own, as if that isn't being on their own. Yeah, I'm with you. I like it, Sam. We've got some controversial opinions going on today. This is this is good material. Yeah, no, it's great. Okay. Well, let me just speak quickly to what I said about the skill set, because I think that's an important thing. Do you mean about the one person doing one role? That one person doing, I call it soup to nuts. Yeah. So let's say you find out you've got a brain tumor. Sorry, David. It's non-life threatening, you'd be pleased to know. And you go into the hospital and you register with the receptionist, and the receptionist said, right, I'll take you through to the operating theatre, puts a mask on and gets a scalpel out. You're going to be a bit worried, aren't you? Right? Because you expect an expert in your thing, in your brain tumor, to be the one that operates on you. It's exactly the same in agency. You can't have one person doing everything. They cannot be good at all those things. We talk in our agency and also in Mastermind about swim lanes. You've got to stay in your swim lane. If you're really good at being, at a desk, behind a screen, not client facing, spreadsheets, risk analysis, logical management stuff, then that's what you should be doing. If you're really good at speaking to clients and being out and about and being very sociable, that's what you should be doing. But try and mix those two things and it's all going to go wrong. You're going to burn out and you're not going to give your vendors the best possible experience or your buyers.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I'm not sitting on the fence of that per se. But what I will say is that I think you probably both experienced this where it can be done that way, can be done so badly, can't it? And I think if you're going to do it that way, it all comes down to the quality of the people, but also the management and the processes and the clarity and the communication. Because if someone feels like they're calling up the office and they don't know who they're speaking to from time to time, they just pass from pillar to post and no one's taking ultimate responsibility for their case as their property goes through, let's just say, then I can understand how there'd be pushback from it. I get that. I think it's sort of, funnily enough, that and the arguably, potentially, the self-employed conversations are two parts of the same conversation in total, because the self-employed person would be doing fewer unit numbers and devoting their time to those fewer unit numbers. And that's why I think it lends itself especially to the premium market, but devoting themselves to that, they are the person that's taking that vendor through from MA through to completion. And they're not pulled from pillar to post doing valuation. And if you're a bigger machine, then you've got people that can take on the other parts of those roles. So I get that. I think having moved home 47 times, you've no doubt experienced the opposite end of that, where you call up, who the hell am I talking to now? What is going on? Can I get an update? So is that fair to say that it comes down to how tightly run that ship is?
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about really is the difference between more of a lifestyle business, which isn't really a business, and a well-oiled machine that you could one day sell or let somebody else come in and run and then take a salary from yourself. I think if you've got a lifestyle business, you are your business. So if you want to learn how to do all those things and you really enjoy that soup to nuts kind of style of working with only a few clients, then absolutely, that's the right thing for you. It definitely isn't the right thing for me and Phil. We never wanted to be estate agents. We wanted to be business owners.
Yeah.
And we work with some amazing high net worth individuals who are also business owners, who also manage to have a life outside their business where they have people doing those things and probably much better than they did. I mean, look at Richard Branson, right? At one point, you had 199 different brands, different Virgin brands, right? He could never have got to even 10 of those if he'd carried on putting singles in, in envelopes and sending them out himself from that little chapel. He couldn't have done it. Elon Musk, how is he going to ever get to the dizzy heights of Tesla and beyond if he hasn't got MDs and COOs and he has to have a machine, that runs that business? Yes. And he could just be the ideas guy. Countless examples of this across different industries. But for some reason in estate agent, we seem to default to I will do everything. I will be your one point of contact. I will give you my phone number. You can phone me at 3:00 in the morning if you like. This huge promise that you don't really get in any other industry. You're not going to get it off your doctor or your dentist. You're not going to get it off your lawyer or even a car salesperson. Why do you expect to get it from an estate agent? And it's because we have set our stall out. We've allowed people to think like this. So we are educating our vendors to think that is okay.
Yeah. And trying to push against that low level of service that I spoke about earlier. I think a lot of it comes down to, this sounds obvious, but actually probably isn't. And maybe you'll agree with me on this, but knowing what you want. So I remember I spoke to an agent a long time ago and they used to run, I think it was like a 5. This is going back probably 10 years or so. So this is a little bit more traditional in the sense of the way businesses were back then compared to now, arguably post-COVID. But they used to run a 5 or 6 or 7 branch business. And in the end, they said, no, I don't want to do that anymore. Scaled it back to 1. And it was a traditional setup. He was the sort of the valuer and ran it in the negotiation and sales progressors and so on. But he didn't want to scale the business because he didn't like the business side of it. He preferred the agency. And I think as long as you know what you actually want, then you'd be all right. So
I think that's exactly right, though. You do have to know what you want. Otherwise, what I've just said is just a general term.
Yeah. So, right, I'm catching up with you, Sam. You go too fast for me. So let's talk about direct mail then. So, and this is something I think that you're pretty well known for reputationally, is direct mail. When we say direct mail, are we or are we not talking about letters to properties that are on the market? You know, this is the ones that come through the door with everybody else with a barcode on the top or whatever, that get piled up there. Or are we talking about more general market cultivation of properties that are not necessarily on the market, or is it both?
Both. And so what we're saying by direct is we're choosing the properties for it to go out to, as opposed to mass market every single property like a pizza delivery. So that's the only reason we use the word direct mail, because it's direct to the property that we've chosen. Whether it's on the market or off the market or recently off the market is you know, they're still direct because we've still chosen that property. So we every high value home in our area gets 16 letters a year if they're on the market, and 4 letters a year if they're not. So we send what we call a NOM letter, which you might have heard us talk about before, not on market letter, every quarter. It looks a little bit like a market update, but when you read it, it's not like a market update. So we engage with them on their level and tell them why this update is important, but then it's a sales letter at its core. So it uses a lot of quite clever psychological tricks to get people, not tricks, but tactics to get people to consider at least having a conversation with us about the value of their home and why they should have a conversation now. Whereas a market update doesn't really do that. It's just a market update, isn't it? And then the on the market letters, if you're on the market for 12 months with, in our local area, you're going to get 12 letters offers. You're going to get 1 a month. And all those letters are completely different. We've had letters that have gone out as invitations, as 6-page letters, as 1-page letters, as postcards, as like an old-fashioned recipe, as like a little old-fashioned newspaper. We've, trialed everything. So I've always run direct mail campaigns since 2004. So for 21 years, we've got, probably 1,000 different letters we've used over that time. Wow. All to different effects, and some work amazingly, some don't work as well. But we've trialed them all over the country for all different kinds of markets and all different kinds of agents. And I can tell you hands down, there's nothing more predictable than direct mail. Not Facebook ads, not Google ads, nothing. Direct mail just beats everything hands down. But it's got to be the right direct mail, and you've got to choose the house it goes to.
Would you say, and I think this is what you said earlier, but I was trying to keep something else in my head at the time, has direct mail been the biggest source of new business for Ashdown Jones of everything you've done?
Yeah, I would say that, this year we're targeted to turn over 1 million, which we're probably going to be short of, I'll be honest, because it's been a tough year. We've got the listings, we just don't have the sales. And come October, it's out of our hands, isn't it? If we're trying to do a calendar year. Yeah. So at the moment, it looks like we're going to be short of it by about 10%. But even so, £900,000 a year for a single branch agency with about 7 agency staff, sales only, I think is pretty incredible. I don't know many like that across the country. You probably don't either.
No.
And to say that is only built up through direct mail, I think is amazing. So our first 3 years, almost every single sale or every single listing we had was direct mail. Yeah. Now we can't really give you a definitive answer about what is and isn't. I can say 55% is probably about direct, but actually how many of those are selling with us now because of their neighbor sold through a direct mail campaign?
Yeah. Where's the source?
4 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, where's the original source? It had to happen. We had to blitz our market and dominate the high value home market through direct mail. And then that has had a knock-on effect.
Feel free not to answer this question, but how much would you say you spend a year on direct mail?
I can tell you exactly. I don't have the figure in front of me, but I can tell you that we allow about £1.10 for every letter. That includes the printing and the stamps, because we use actual physical stamps. Yeah. And the envelope as well. And we send out $1,250 a month, so about 5,000 a quarter. So 20,000 times £1. What did I say? £1.10, £1.15, something like that. Yeah. Yeah. What's that work out?
I couldn't keep up with you, Sam. So again,
it's probably about 15. Times... So it's probably about £15,000 a year. Is that right?
Yeah. So it's a sizable investment for someone.
No, it's more than that. It's more than that. It's 20,000. 20,000 times let's say £1.15, I don't know. So it's £23,000 a year.
Okay, so an even more sizable investment. Yeah, I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? That if it's the kind of £2,000 a month that's going out on letters, and also, is it fair to say that this, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but this isn't a fast return, that you would send out letters immediately and then get a load of stock on the market? My impression of direct mail in this sense has been that it's a long-term play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, relatively, yes. I mean, we do send out some of our letters and we get immediate, we sent out a letter that we were trialing last month and got 20 phone calls immediately for valuations.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, I think that they're quite low intent valuations, so that they don't necessarily result in listings. In a tough market, it's funny because in a tough market, you'd think that you send out letters and nobody responds because it's a tough market. And when it's a great market, you think maybe nobody responds because it's a great market. But actually, there's a variety of reasons why somebody would respond in either of those two markets. So when it's a tough market like now, where we have got more sellers than buyers, then people are want to know what else they can do about it. So they're much more likely to change agents, much more likely to try and take a proactive approach. When it's a really fast market, we get responses because everybody else is selling except for them.
Yeah.
So in other words, you can't really gauge the market. You've got to just go with, trust the process of the letters. And honestly, I think that, I don't know how agents run their businesses without letters. I just, where do you get your leads from? How do you? But I know that some people who have been in mastermind in the past or never been in mastermind are stuck at that kind of 300k a year mark that you can't get past without direct mail. I don't believe it's possible.
Do you think that it works in the volume market? Because you're a premium agent, and I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you? And this podcast is all premium, so that fine. But if you are saying you're stuck at 300,000, if you are a residential volume market, would you still say that it works for them, or is the
it doesn't work as well?
Yeah.
I think we've set our stall to target high value homes, and that's where when we sell our letters through Mastermind. So our Mastermind members pay 15k a year and they get access to all our letters, the whole library, plus everything we send out on a live basis with real-time stats, because we can all share our stats then. They absolutely follow everything that we tell them to do, but they sometimes take on a lot lower value stock. And I think if they're selling like a £300,000 3-bed semi, that person is not going to be the entrepreneurial person that we mentioned earlier, where they're not going to respond to our letters in the same way. Yeah. They're looking for, highest file, lowest fee. That's what that commoditized market does. But if that agent that is currently selling £300,000, thank you very much, wants to move into the high value homes market, then we are their access.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that someone can do both?
Yes, but ideally they would have two brands to do it.
Yeah,
I think it's very difficult to do it under one brand. In fact, I think it's pretty much impossible. I know that Chris Watkin we're on the Watkin sofa recently, and he was saying that the only agent he knows that not only dominates high value, but also has biggest market share across market is Wilkinson Grant in Exeter. Were you thinking the same one?
I think the same one, exact same one. I use that expression, that same story from Chris Watkin all the time. And at the time he told me, I think he'd done 71 towns and cities, and it was only one. I don't know whether he'd allow me to say it, so I can never say it, but you've taken that away now anyway, so I can tell people that it's
I've just said
Grant.
it.
Yeah.
I don't think you mind. But when we moved into our area, though, we opened here. We had Hackney and Lee, which we still have, which has got 8 branches, absolutely dominates whole of market and premium as well. But not for long, because as soon as an agency like ours comes along that then pursues the high value market, they lost it. They lost it to us straight away.
Yeah. We go on for hours. I just don't fundamentally think you can be all things to all men. It doesn't happen in basically any other industry. So I don't know why we'd be different.
Nothing.
So just going back, sorry, Zara, I can't keep up. So probably quite a good thing, because you do masterminds, you do Cosmo, and I don't know what these things are. Yeah. So what are they, and do they relate to the letters?
Yes. So mastermind and the private mastermind is 15k a year or 24k a year, and that enables agents in the mastermind to meet with me and Phil on mastermind days, have personal coaching, have access to all the letters, everything that they need basically to run an agency like ours. So they can take our blueprint and apply it to theirs. For obvious reasons, we don't allow an agent in Cumbria or Lancashire and parts of Yorkshire to do this, but everywhere else, all across the country. But what we found was not everybody can join Mastermind. Not everybody needs an exclusive area, which is what Mastermind gives you. So we developed something called Cosmo, which is an off-the-shelf. So off-the-shelf library of letters, library of trainings, and also a library of blogs. And they can pay £347 plus VAT a month and get access to that. And that's just a plug and play, join for a month and leave if you like, cancel any time with 30 days. So two very different kind of people we find that want these two different products, but hopefully we've got something for everybody that needs to grow their agency, but doesn't have the access to the letters or the training to be able to do it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That sounds cool. Your experience of offices, because you have an office, but it's not a high street office. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
What's say you're going to do Ashdown Jones all over again? Would you do the same thing with your office? Would you do something different? What's your experience been with offices as the business has progressed?
Yeah, 100%. We started off in my house, and it was a house that I was renting, which I still am, but a different house. And the owner came to me and said he wanted to sell the house. And I said, we will sell it for you. And that was a £1.25 million listing in the days where we didn't have one over $1 million. So it was a very, very early months. And I said to Phil, we cannot leave our office in a house we're selling. It's just impossible. We need an office. And we hadn't intended to go and get an office quite as soon as we did. It was 4 months in. So we just had to bite the bullet and go and get an office. Yeah. It's not the office we're in now, but the office we're in now is a beautiful converted farm, surrounded by beautiful fields. It has its own challenges. So we're not customer facing, really. People don't really come to the office, which is great. It means that everybody can get on with their work. It's a locked office, so people have to knock on the door. It does mean that things like getting staff in is harder because they all have to drive and have their own vehicle because it's not on a bus route. It's very rural. You can't really walk to it. But I think it's the perfect antidote to a high street office. I've known, in fact, when we first ever opened, Humbert's opened in the same, it opened in Windermere on the high street, prime Windermere office. Phil was very jealous of it. And really, that was what he was hankering after, this beautiful high street office. They closed within a year. And he said to me, the franchisee, I couldn't cope with everybody coming in and tire kicking, like you said earlier, wanting to use the toilet, wanting to get out of the rain, wanting to know the bus times. He couldn't cope with it. Well, we don't have any of that.
So you would do the same thing again, have an office not on the high street, and would advise someone to do similar. Yeah, okay. Sorry, this is industry chit chat more than anything. What happened to Humbert's? Are they still going? Obviously not in.
Yeah, they bought themselves back out again, didn't they? So they went. So the guy that a local guy to here actually bought the name, bought the brand, tried to turn it around, couldn't, went bankrupt again, and then I think what happened is that the franchisees, some of them just disappeared, and then the centrally owned offices also disappeared. So anybody who was a franchisee who had an office, I think, remains. So it went down from because it went to Chester and Humbert's for a while. Do you remember?
Yeah, that was right.
About 60 branches.
Yeah.
And now it's just Humbert's. They split from Chesterton's, who is obviously a separate brand now. And they've probably got about 20 or 30 offices, I would say, who are all franchisee owned rather than head office owned.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I just didn't know what happened to them. Funny question to ask you. So in your experience of running Ashdown Jones, what would you not do again? What have you thought, that was a total waste of time, that was a waste of money, that was a waste of effort, that didn't, there's a crap expression, is it, but didn't move the needle for the business? What would you advise someone not to do? Maybe we talked about videos, talked about offices, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so I mistakenly thought that our first hire should be to replace me or Phil. And I don't know what I was thinking. That was a terrible decision. Absolutely awful. Yeah, a guy called Joe, really nice guy, could not do our job. We couldn't do our job at the time. So how the hell do we expect him to do it? What we should have done was employed an office manager first, so that we were freed up from the office stuff. And we could just get out and about meeting people. So to stay with the, I'm sure you've heard the expression, the £1,000 an hour tasks, £100 and then the £10. We tried to hire at the top first, which was just a disaster. So that put us back a few months and a few, months' salaries as well. we shouldn't have done that. But everything else, I don't know. I feel like it's all been part of the tapestry of our journey, right and wrong. We were very lucky to get, and this sounds awful, and I really don't want to offend anybody, but for COVID to happen in those first, at the end of year 3 for us, changed our business.
In what sense?
Because at first we thought we were going to not have a business, as everybody thought in those first few months.
Yeah.
But afterwards, when the bounce happened, and we had an amazing second year of COVID, like everybody did, and then all that help from the government and everything, it really helped us expand really fast. And we seem to have a board everywhere. We had so many sales going through at ridiculous prices that I just think that because we're young and lean, and there's only me and Phil really with a couple of staff members, I think our local agents just got left behind.
Really?
So we're just lucky.
Why were they left behind? What happened? What do you mean?
Well, because they contracted. They kept the signs on the doors. We're not doing any viewings, go away. We've got COVID, and just retracted. Whereas we did everything the opposite. I even got put in the national press for doing a viewing in lockdown. Don't you remember? That was, I got vilified for that.
I don't remember that. All press is good press, yeah. All right. I thought we were allowed to at the time, weren't we? We were sort of the first people.
Not in the first lockdown, no.
Oh, right. Was it the one after? I can't remember. Okay, so you got
second and third lockdowns we were allowed to, but the first lockdown we weren't. So yes, according to a lot of agents out there, I broke the law. It turns out I didn't, but that was the general consensus, and that got us in the paper. But yeah, it was quite a fun time, wasn't it? Apart from obviously the very sad part of COVID and people getting ill and dying, the bounce on the economy was extraordinary. We'll never see it again in our lifetimes, I believe.
No. Well, I think that's what happens when you just pour a load of, petrol on the fire, money on it. And they didn't need to do the stamp duty holiday either. That was more petrol on an already roaring fire, and away it went.
Yeah.
I agree. I don't think we could see that again in our lifetime.
No. And actually we worked out that in that first year, which was, I think, probably halfway through 2020 to halfway through 2021, we'd personally, as a business, generated £1 million in tax stamp duty for the government. Yeah. £1 million, one branch. That's insane, really, isn't it? So the economy was a bit crazy, wasn't it, for those few years? Now, I foresaw the dip. Obviously, you can't have a bull market without a bear market. We all know that. But a lot of agents spent what they were earning at the time, and we were quite frugal, actually, and bought a house for cash that we were going to renovate and sell, which we did a terrible job on. We didn't manage it at all. We were too busy selling houses, to be fair. And so we ring-fenced that money and sold it. And that was the start of our property kind of empire, if you like. We started a property portfolio that we're growing quickly to this day. In fact, we're about to release a property education course. I don't have a link or anything anybody can go to, but if you want to know how to do this and you're listening, just send me an email, sam@ajmastermind.co.uk, and I'll send you the available, the availability and the details when it's ready. But I do believe that every agent should be building up their own personal property portfolio, because it's so important to give you a bit of a safety net against the economy.
Just this is what I was going to ask you, actually, when you said your personal property portfolio, are you doing this personally, or is this through the business with Phil? It's
as a business. I shouldn't use the word personal really yet. We've got personal properties as well. Phil and I have both got personal properties that we rent out, but we own the majority together and under the umbrella of the company.
So that's really interesting. So Ashdown Jones would own properties that it rents out?
It's called the AJ Properties Limited, but yeah.
Okay, like as a parent and child company structure set up.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, parent and child company, as in the parent company is called the Ashdown Jones Group. Yeah. And then it's got 3 companies that sit underneath it. So it's got AJ Mastermind, it's got Ashdown Jones, and it's got the AJ Properties Limited. Okay,
I'm with you. That makes sense. I was thinking, one day down the line when you come to sell it, otherwise it can be a very strange business for someone to try and buy. So hang on a minute, am I buying a education company, an estate agency, or a
or and actually, do you know what? I don't think, David, that our business is sellable. I mean, if you do the sums based on 70% of pipeline, this business is worth about 250k.
I did a podcast release a couple of weeks ago with Adam J. Walker. I don't know whether you know Adam particularly well, but so it was really interesting talking to him about that whole market and what estate agencies are worth, and then how to increase your valuation basically and your multiple for the business, because it's crazy how sales only agencies are unfortunately worth so little.
or nothing.
Yeah.
Who wants to buy a single branch agency with, a small pipeline, and all that we're going to say is, you need to use letters. we'll plug in a system for you, but we've got whatever 90 odd properties on the market that they could just withdraw anytime.
Yeah.
So what are they actually buying? Not buying anything. We don't own our premises. In fact, we're very asset poor, really, because deliberately we've got no balance sheet.
Yeah.
So our plan really is to run it until we don't want to run it anymore, and then maybe even, I don't know, management buyout, or just taking a passive income and putting an MD in, or upgrading one of our staff to MD. It's just something that allows us to keep hold of it, keep a decent income, because we'll never get what it's worth if we sell it.
Do you think a lot of agents are thinking about their exit like you are?
No, I don't. And I think that their pushback is, but I'm not thinking of selling. But that's not the point. The point is, could you sell if you needed to? Well, nobody knows what's around the corner. You see it on LinkedIn all the time. People that are my age and younger, I'm 57 now, people in their 40s who have got, a life-threatening illness, or, we know it from our lovely Sarah Edmondson, who is a really good friend of mine, lived really close. Yeah. She was 40 when she died. And you don't know when that news is coming. And I'm not trying to be morbid. I'm just saying, if you had to sell your business tomorrow, is your business in any fit state at all to sell it? And the majority of businesses are not.
Yeah. Yeah. Or would somebody know what the actual value of it is or not in today's market? It's interesting. Adam thinks it's going to change in the next few years, and there'll be an appetite back for sales businesses. But we'll see. You'll have to listen to the podcast, Sam.
Yeah, I'd need to be persuaded. I will listen to the podcast, and I'll do a counter podcast on our podcast.
Right. My penultimate question for you is there anything that I should have asked you on this podcast that I haven't asked you? Anything you think, that would have been a really good thing to talk about that I've missed out?
Yes. The only thing that I would say is what the advice is at the moment across the industry. Well, actually, I think there's a lack of advice. What do we do in a tough market? What do we do when there's no buyers around and money is tight? And I think that there's a tendency to contract, to maybe not list anymore, or to, pull back on your direct mail campaigns or your door knocking, whatever it is that you're doing to list, because you're thinking, well, every listing is going to cost me, I don't know, $1,000 or whatever your listing is going to cost you. I can't afford that if they're not selling. And I'm also going to go in and start, more realistically valuing properties, because I don't want them to stick on my books. Well, actually, I think that is completely misguided thinking. I think that right now, when property is easy to list and tough to sell, just list like mad. Fill your boots with properties. Get as many properties as you can possibly get on the market. If there's 300 properties in your area over 500,000, try and get 200 of them, 250 of them. More, because when that market turns, and markets always turn, those listings are your fees and nobody else's. You retract now, you only have 30 properties on the market over 500,000. When the market turns, you can only sell 30 houses.
I love that. I like the straightforward advice of it as well. Appreciate, unless you've got it hidden down there's no Ashdown Jones crystal ball. When do you think the market will turn? What will make it turn? What do you think needs to change for it to turn?
Well, I asked ChatGPT this just the other day to see if it had any idea at all.
New boss.
And it says it's probably got a lot more idea about it than I have. I can only look at historical trends like anybody can and go, well, it doesn't normally last for any more than 18 months, 2 years. So I could say that I feel that we're starting to come out of it now. For us personally, we're starting to get a lot more interest in the top end again. Maybe other agents are feeling the opposite, but Q2 next year, ChatGPT says is going to be the quarter when things start to really move. So we're just listing like mad. We've got over 80 homes on the market now. And that is 3 times our normal stock.
3 times?
3 times. Our normal stock is more like 30.
Wow. That's astonishing.
So we've got let's say we've got 90. I would say 2/3 of those are under $1 million, but still over about 400,000. Yeah. And about 30 is over $1 million, and about 7 of ours are over 3 million, I think. And then we've got a board of about 30 homes that are either quietly marketed, on hold, tempt me out kind of houses, on top of that as well. So our listed fees at the moment are about 1.7 million. So if we cleared everything tomorrow, not including pipeline, it's about 1.3 million there. 7 million.
And what's your opinion of those properties and their pricing? Are you pushing them on pricing, or just hold tight, get good marketing, wait for the market to turn?
Yeah. There's no point in dropping a big price decrease into a dead market.
Yeah.
I'd rather see the market move, and if they're still not getting interest, then approach them for a price decrease.
Yeah.
But we are well known here for getting really good prices on houses.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it.
So I would stick with it.
I like talking to you, Sam. You're very straight talking, and it's a bit of a rarity sometimes, isn't it? You're like, no, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is exactly what I mean. This is what I say. I know, I like it. I really enjoyed our conversation. Right, my last question, unfortunately, is a ridiculous one. So we have a ridiculous closing tradition on this podcast, being property porn stars. Whether you know it or not, Sam, everyone has a porn star name. And it is comprised of, we've got this wrong for so long, I can't even tell you, but it is comprised of your mother's maiden name and your first pet's name. So far, Matt, the usual co-host in episode 1, topped the charts with Kevin Tiny, which is the most ridiculous porn star name you ever heard. Brilliant. I'm hoping that you can finally pip him to the post. What's yours?
Well, mine would be rubbish, really. It would be Ashdown, which is my mother's maiden name, which I adopted, and Penny, which is my dog.
Yeah, that is a bit rubbish, isn't it? And also, it's above the door, so you can't go too far with the porn star.
Yeah, it's a bit boring. But what's funny is, you won't remember this, but of course you won't remember this. Back in the 1980s, everybody had CB radios, and everybody had what's called a handle. You use it now for Twitter, don't you? For the word handle. So you would have a handle. Yeah, that's where it came from. A handle for the CB radio, and mine was Passionate Friend, which would be a much better porn star name. I'm going to go with that.
Did you choose that, or was
I chose it because it was there was a band called the Teardrop Explodes in the 80s, and that was my favourite song of theirs, Passionate Friend.
Well, we'll go with that. I like that. That's much better. Perfect. Sam, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. Really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you for getting off the fence on a lot of this as well, and giving some controversial opinions as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for asking me as well. This has been fun. We enjoyed this.
No, likewise. It's been great. And for everyone listening and watching, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And we'll catch you in the next episode. Bye for now.